Hey, welcome to Starbound. I'm Daniel Pierce, and I'm going to be your narrator today. Nearly 500 supporters get early access to our stories. That's including Sunspire Academy and Frarian and Rimiki. If you'd like to unlock early access and support our new episodes and series, tap join below and become a Starbound member today. Now, let's get into today's story. The Driari were considered the tamest and friendliest creatures in the galaxy, topping a list on which Earth's golden retriever didn't even crack the top 10. That reputation changed overnight when humanity reached the stars, and the first Driari was gifted to a human family, brought to Earth to live freely on a farm. Dria's first memory was the crack of her shell giving way, pieces falling around her as warm light flooded in. Through the membrane that still clung to her scaled hide, she could make out three shapes leaning over the incubation table. Their eyes, so strange with their circular pupils, watched her with surprise and a certain gentleness. She pushed through the last of her protective coating, her limbs trembling with the effort of being born. The Driari were known throughout the galaxy for their pastel pink wings, delicate membranes stretched between thin bones that never quite developed enough for flight. As Dria unfurled hers for the first time, they fluttered uselessly but beautifully, reflecting the white light like stained glass. Most sapient species found them irresistibly endearing. Living plush toys that chirped melodically and followed their owners with endless loyalty. But something different happened when Dria's golden eyes locked onto the smallest of the three humans. The boy, Seth, though she didn't know names yet, had leaned closest to the table, his face mere inches from hers. In that moment, something fundamental shifted in her biology. The psionic waves emanating from him were unlike those of his parents, who stood back slightly, radiating curiosity and a hint of worry. Seth's mind blazed with pure enthusiasm, a warmth that wrapped around Dria's consciousness like a blanket. The parents clapped their son on the shoulder, congratulating him on his new alien pet. Their interest quickly shifted as they turned to each other. "Do you know what this means?" the mother said, her eyes bright with excitement. "First on Earth," the father replied. "First family. Think of the endorsements. The Nakamura's got $2 million for that healing moss. This thing actually moves. It's cute," said the mother. "Cute sells. We need an agent. Today," added the father. Dria tilted her head, understanding nothing of their words, but sensing the sharp, calculating energy between them. Seth noticed it too. His enthusiasm dimmed slightly as he watched his parents, their monetary excitement so different from his own. Can I give her some meat?" Seth suddenly interrupted their boring discussion. "She looks like a little dragon. Dragons should eat meat." Both parents whipped around to stare at him. "Are you insane?" his mother hissed. "Do you want to kill our lottery ticket?" his father added. "She's not a dragon, Seth. She's a Driari that was gifted to Earth. Do you know what happens if she dies?" asked the mother. "Lawsuit, diplomatic incident. Forget college funds," said the father. "Forget the house," said the mother. The lecture continued, rapid fire between them, each parent building on their other's warnings about profits and losses, opportunities and disasters. Dria watched it all with growing confusion, her new bond with Seth allowing her to feel his frustration building with each sharp word. She didn't understand why the larger humans were making those harsh, clipped sounds at him, but she could sense his disappointment, like a gray cloud settling over the bright enthusiasm from moments before. Something deep in her genetic code stirred, a protective instinct that the Driari hadn't needed in millions of years of evolution on their peaceful homeworld. But here, in this strange new place, bonded to this young human who radiated such pure emotion, ancient pathways began to reactivate. She chirped softly, a sound meant to be soothing, but Seth's parents were too deep in their calculations to notice the fluctuation in the psionic waves. Only Seth looked down at her without understanding what she had just done, and for a moment his frustration melted into a small smile. The first of what would become a series of Earth-related changes had already begun. Days later, Drea found herself alone with Seth in his room at night. He sat hunched over his computer, the screen's glow illuminating his concentrated face, while she nestled in a cushioned cardboard box on the floor. The soft padding smelled like him, which made her feel safe and content. "I'm learning so much about you, Drea," Seth said, not really expecting her to understand, but needing to talk anyway. "Says here your species lost the ability to fly, just like chickens did. Thousands of years of safety breeding made your wings decorative." Drea tilted her head at the sounds he made. The words meant nothing to her, but the sonic waves emanating from him carried hints of sadness, curiosity, and something else. Guilt? Her attention drifted as a familiar scent caught her sensitive nostrils. There, on his bed, sat a plate he had forgotten. The smell was intoxicating, making her mouth water in a way the bland soybean mash never did. "My parents were right about the diet, apparently," Seth continued, scrolling through his research. "The Tau Ceti colonies, that's where your species lives now, they only feed Driari vegetation, specifically formulated plant proteins. No meat whatsoever." The sonic field around him resonated with information she couldn't quite grasp, but instinctively she understood he was talking about food. That wonderful-smelling food on the plate above. She rose from her box, her claws pressing softly against the hardwood floor as she began her journey toward the bed. "It's weird, though," Seth muttered, absorbed in his reading. "Species that raised Driari now are like the most peaceful beings in the galaxy. They're super proud of breeding the tamest, most obedient pet that exists." Drea reached the bed and assessed the climb. Her legs, growing stronger each day on this high-gravity planet, tensed as she prepared to jump. The smell was so close now, calling to something primal within her. "Oh, this is interesting. Your ancestral planet had Earth-like gravity, not like the colonies where they breed you now. That's probably why you seem so comfortable here, why you're getting so strong." Seth turned to share this discovery with her, but the cardboard box sat empty. A moment of panic seized him before he spun around to find Drea on his bed, her snout buried in a plate of leftover chicken. Sauce covered her face, and she'd made an absolute mess of his sheets. But the look of pure bliss in her golden eyes as she licked the last morsel made him freeze. "Drea, no! You can't!" He stopped mid-scold, watching her pupils dilate with pleasure as she savored the forbidden meal. "Oh, man, if Mom and Dad find out..." 6 months later, the garden had become their sanctuary. Seth paced back and forth across the manicured lawn, running his hands through his hair while Drea watched him with curious eyes. "Oh, they're getting too big," he said, gesturing wildly at her wings. "Way too big. The care manual says they should be maybe 6 inches longer by now, but yours are like, well, look at them." Drea stretched her wings obligingly, the afternoon sun flittering through the translucent pink membranes. They were magnificent, easily twice the size they should have been according to every source Seth had found online. "Oh, this is my fault. All that meat I've been sneaking you, chicken, beef, even that fish last week," he groaned. "You're not developing right. What if you're sick? What if I've ruined you?" She chirped softly, not understanding his distress, but wanting to comfort him. The sound only made him more agitated. No, we need to fix this before my parents notice. That means no more meat for you. They've been so busy with the publicity tours, they haven't really looked at you lately, but when they do..." He shuddered. "Okay, we're going to train you to keep them folded, like this." Seth demonstrated by tucking his arms tight against his body. Drea tilted her head, amused by his strange behavior. "Wings in, Drea. In! Close to your body. He gently tried to fold her wings, but they were too large now to tuck neatly against her sides like they used to. "Oh, come on, work with me." What followed was 20 minutes of increasingly desperate attempts. Seth tried treats, soybeans, which Drea now largely ignored, verbal commands in various tones, and even attempted to demonstrate by fashioning fake wings from cardboard. Drea, thinking it was a game, would fold her wings for a moment, then spring them open again, delighted by Seth's exasperated reactions. "This isn't funny," he said, though he was fighting a smile. "If they see how big your wings are getting, they'll know I've been feeding you wrong. They'll blame me for whatever you're becoming." Finally, exhausted, Seth flopped onto the grass. Drea immediately curled up beside him, her two large wings draped over him like a pink silk blanket. Despite his worry, Seth found himself stroking the delicate membrane, marveling at how strong it had become. 10 months later, Drea had mastered the art of stealth. She woke in the depths of night, Seth's gentle snoring telling her he was deep asleep. Moving in silence, she slipped from her bed. She had long outgrown the cardboard box and padded toward his door. The handle was no challenge anymore, her claws, sharper and more dexterous than any Driari should be, easily manipulated the mechanism. The hallway stretched before her, dark and full of possibility. She had memorized every creaky board, every obstacle, moving through the house like a ghost. The dog door was freedom. She squeezed through, though it was getting tighter each time, and emerged in the cool night air. Baxter, the family's golden retriever, immediately bounded over, tail wagging. Drea tolerated his enthusiastic licking, even played along for a moment, batting at him with gentle paws. But the night called to her. She trotted toward the open field, her wings beginning to unfurl. This was what Seth called being a bad girl, but it felt so right. The wind caught her wings, and she spread them wide, feeling the air pressure build beneath them. Her feet left the ground for just a moment, longer than last time, and pure joy flooded through her. She knew she wasn't supposed to do this. Seth worried constantly about her wings, about her size, about the neighbors seeing. But under the stars, with the wind rushing through her, she felt she had become exactly what she was supposed to be. Seth would forgive her. He always did. 2 years later, the interrogation room smelled of fear, mostly Seth's fear. Drea sat beside him, trying to make herself smaller, acutely aware of how her bulk filled the space meant for a creature less than half her size. The sterile scent of the room was punctuated by the faint metallic tang of an officer's service weapon and the earthy smell of the scientist's field clothes, suggesting they'd come directly from their farm. 2 uniformed police officers stood near the door, while a man and a woman in plainclothes, clearly scientists, given the subtle glint of specialized equipment of their belts, observed from a corner. "The Henderson farm reported multiple chickens missing," the police officer said, sliding photos across the table. "Their security camera caught something unusual." Seth's heart was racing so fast Drea could hear it without even trying. Through their bond, waves of anxiety crashed over her. She wanted to comfort him, but didn't dare move. "Before we continue," one of the scientists interjected, a woman with kind eyes behind thick glasses, "I want to assure you that the government will cover any damages. We're not here about the chickens." "You're not?" Seth's voice cracked. The scientist produced a tablet, turning it toward them. "This is what a young Driari should look like." The image showed a creature the size of a house cat, with tiny ornamental wings barely extending past its body. "And this," she gestured to Drea, "is your pet." Drea was easily twice the size of the image, her wings capable of wrapping around Seth entirely. Her muscles were defined beneath scales that had darkened from pastel pink to a deeper rose. Her teeth, when she nervously licked them, were decidedly sharper than the blunt nubs in the photo. She's just big for her age?" Seth tried weakly. "Mr. Lewin," another scientist leaned forward, we're not here to separate you two. Your parents won't be blamed either. But we need to know, have you been feeding her something different from the prescribed diet? The reluctance poured off Seth in waves. Drea felt his internal struggle, his desire to protect her, warring with the impossibility of maintaining the lie. She made a decision. Slowly, deliberately, she extended one massive wing, draping it over Seth's shoulders in what she hoped he'd understand as permission. Seth laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. She developed a taste for meat. I've been feeding her chicken, beef, or whatever we had. I couldn't help it. She was so happy when she ate it, and when I stopped... The room went very still. And, the lead scientist prodded gently, and she can fly now. To get her chicken. Not just glide, actually fly. The silence that followed was deafening. Every scientist in the room had frozen. Styluses hovering over tablets, eyes wide. Finally, the woman with glasses spoke. Mr. Lewin, would you consider helping us with some research? Think of it as your first job, studying Drea's development. In secret from the Tau Ceti delegation, of course. Drea felt Seth's immediate, visceral rejection. His pet, his friend, reduced to a research subject? Anger flared through their bond, hot and protective. We wouldn't need you to relocate, she continued quickly. We could observe right here at the farm. Your parents have already agreed to the arrangement. Of course they have, Seth muttered bitterly. The alternative, the scientist said gently, is that the Tau Ceti eventually discover her deviation. They gifted Earth a Driari with very specific expectations. If they knew she had changed so much... She didn't need to finish. Seth's shoulders slumped in defeat. Through their bond, Drea felt him accept what she had already known. They couldn't hide what she was becoming forever. Fine, he said quietly. She's not just a test subject. She's family. Drea pressed closer to him, her wing tightening protectively around his shoulders. A low, resonant sound rumbled in her chest, tentative at first, then firmer, shaped by mimicry and meaning. It wasn't perfect, but it was something, and it shocked the scientist as much as it shocked Seth himself. 15 years had passed in the blink of an eye, yet each day weighed on Drea's conscience like a stone. Seth had finished school many years ago, but instead of pursuing the university dreams he had once shared with her during their quiet nights, he had stayed for her. She shifted her massive bulk on the custom-built bed that took up half the barn, the reinforced steel frame groaning slightly under her weight. The scientist had been thorough. The circular platform could support a small aircraft, with memory foam thick enough to cushion her now considerable mass. Through the barn's modified skylights, afternoon sun painted patterns across her scales, which had long since deepened from rose to a rich green that seemed to shift and shimmer with her moods. The guilt was a constant companion, heavier than her own massive body. Seth insisted the research team's promises were worth more than any traditional degree, that his curriculum vitae after 15 years of groundbreaking xenobiological research would open any door. But Drea knew better. She felt it in his psionic field during the quiet moments, the wistfulness when his old friends visited with their stories of college adventures and career achievements. He'd given up a normal life to become her keeper, her protector, her brother in all but blood. And she'd grown so large, too large, her wings, when fully extended, could no longer fit inside even this modified barn. Flying was restricted to the deepest hours of night when satellite surveillance was minimal and the research team could deploy their scrambling technology. She was a secret wrapped in a secret, hidden from the Tau Ceti delegation who still believed Earth's Driari was a dog-sized pet, hidden from humanity, who weren't ready to know that their tamest creature in the galaxy had become something else entirely. The lunch bell chimed, and Dria's sharp hearing picked up the familiar rumble of wheelbarrows long before they rounded the corner. The double doors swung open, revealing Seth leading a procession of workers, each pushing wheelbarrows filled with steaming meat. "No red meat today, I'm afraid," Seth called out, his voice carrying the easy affection of years of routine. "Dr. Miller is worried about your cholesterol." "Cholesterol is a human concern," Drea projected, her psionic abilities having long since evolved beyond simple emotional probing. "I am not human." Tom, one of the younger assistants, laughed as he upended his wheelbarrow into her feeding trough, though trough hardly did justice to the reinforced titanium construction that could have served as a small swimming pool. "She's got you there, Seth. Call her a bad girl." "And I am not a pet," Drea added, a rumble of mild irritation vibrating through the barn. "I am a sapient being, as conscious and self-aware as any of you. Perhaps more so, given that I can feel all of your emotions without trying." "We know, Drea," Seth said gently, reaching up to pat the small portion of her foreleg he could reach. "Old habits, you know. The language hasn't caught up to the reality." She lowered her great head to nuzzle him, careful of her strength. Even that gentle gesture lifted him slightly off his feet. "I forgive you, but the chicken is overcooked." "Critics," Tom muttered good-naturedly, wheeling his empty barrow away. "Everyone's a critic, even the dragon." Drea had just settled into her meal, savoring the variety of flavors, turkey, pork, a hint of lamb, when her peripheral vision caught movement. Dr. Evelyn Reed entered the barn, flanked by the senior research team. Their faces wore expressions she had learned to dread, serious, careful, bearing news they had rather not deliver. Without conscious thought, her wing swept out, gathering Seth beneath its protective embrace. The feeding trough forgotten, she raised her scaled head to its full height, nearly touching the barn's reinforced ceiling. "What is wrong?" she projected to all of them, no longer bothering with the pretense of animal ignorance. Dr. Reed stepped forward, her hands raised in a calming gesture. "Nothing is wrong, Drea. We need to talk. All of us." "About what?" Seth demanded from beneath her wing. She could feel his heart rate spike, his protective instincts flaring to match her own. "Please," Dr. Reed said, "this is important." Reluctantly, Drea folded her wing back, though she kept Seth close. The scientists arranged themselves in a semicircle, and she was struck again by how small humans seemed now. Once they had towered over her, now she could have scooped all of them up in a single claw. "We believe you've reached full maturity," Dr. Reed began. "Your growth has plateaued over the last 6 months. The cellular analysis confirms it. You're a healthy adult now, Drea." "I could have told you that," Seth interjected. "She's been stable for a while, so what?" Dr. Arthur Wallace, the team's evolutionary biologist, cleared his throat. "It's what she's become that concerns us. Or rather, what we think the Driari originally were." Drea felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. "Explain." "We've run countless simulations," Dr. Reed continued. "Reverse engineering your development, comparing it to fossil records from your home world, analyzing the genetic markers that reactivated when exposed to Earth's environment, and your bond with Seth." "Get to the point," Seth snapped. Drea could feel his anxiety bleeding into anger. "We believe the Driari weren't always pets," Dr. Wallace said bluntly. "The evidence suggests they were apex predators, possibly one of the most formidable in the known galaxy." The barn fell silent, except for the noise of ventilation systems designed to handle Drea's comfort needs. "That's impossible," Drea projected, though even as she formed the thought, something deep in her genetic memory stirred. "My people were gentle, harmless. After thousands of years of controlled breeding, yes," Dr. Reed said gently. "But we think that transformation happened long before humanity reached the stars, long before Homo sapiens even evolved. Someone, the Tau Ceti, or perhaps their ancestors, took your species and changed them deliberately. Turned them from predators into pets, Dr. Wallace added. The question is why and whether they know that Earth's environment has essentially reversed their work. Seth's hand found Dria's scale, a grounding touch. Why are you telling us this now? The scientists exchanged glances. Dr. Reed squared her shoulders. Because decisions need to be made. And despite Seth being your brother, for lack of a better term, these are decisions only Drea can make. What decisions? Seth demanded, but Drea already knew. She felt it in their carefully controlled emotions, their mixture of sympathy and determination. They want to know if I will confront the ones who did this to my people, she projected. The ones who made us slaves of a frail body. Not slaves, Dr. Reed corrected gently, but changed. Without consent, without choice. And yes, we think you have the right to demand answers. Seth exploded. Are you insane? You want to put her in danger to make her confront aliens who apparently turned apex predators into lapdogs? What if they decide she's too dangerous? What if they— Seth, Dria's mental voice cut through his tirade. I am younger than you in years, but I am stronger than anything of flesh on this planet, including you. Let me hear what they propose. He fell silent, but she felt his hurt, his fear, his desperate need to protect her, even though she could now bite through steel. The Tau Ceti delegation has a scheduled visit to Earth in 3 years, Dr. Reed explained. A routine check on their gift. They expect to find a small, docile creature. Instead, they will find me, Drea finished. And you want to know if I will reveal myself, if I will demand to know why they did this to my people. The choice is yours, Dr. Wallace said. We can continue hiding you, continue the fiction, or I can face them as what I truly am. Drea lowered her head, her mind racing. A lifetime of hiding. 15 years of Seth sacrificing his future for her secret. Years of growing into something that shouldn't exist. Remembering instincts and cognition that should have been erased millions of years ago. She thought of the joy of flight, the satisfaction of the hunt, even if it was just chickens in the beginning. The fierce love she felt for Seth that went beyond any pet's devotion. She thought of her people, reduced to living toys, their wings clipped by genetics rather than shears. What would happen to Seth? She asked finally. If I reveal myself, what happens to him? We would protect him, Dr. Reed assured her. The military would stand with both of you. You're not just a subject to us anymore, Drea. You're family. Sounds trite, but it is true. Seth's hand tightened on her scale. Drea, you don't have to. Yes, she interrupted. I do. For me. For my people. For the truth. For you. So you can stop hiding me and start living your life. My life is with you, he said fiercely, and it always will be. But perhaps it's time we stop living it in the shadows. She raised her head, addressing the scientist. When they come, I will meet them as I am, as what they try to erase. Dr. Reed nodded slowly. We'll begin preparations. 3 years isn't long to— 3 years is sufficient, Drea projected with a confidence she didn't entirely feel. But I have conditions. Seth's safety is non-negotiable. If at any point I sense a threat to him, I will do whatever is necessary to protect him. The scientist nodded. understanding the weight of that promise from a creature who could level buildings and shatter minds. And, she added, looking down at Seth with ancient eyes and a young face, we do this together, as we always have. Seth leaned against her, and she felt his fear slowly transform into determination. Of course, he agreed. The pact was sealed, and the countdown began. Ambassador Oswald Wood had served in diplomatic posts across 3 continents and 2 space stations, but nothing in his 40-year career had prepared him for this moment. He stood at the edge of the remote spaceport, a facility hastily cleared of all civilian personnel and surrounded by hidden military assets, watching the sky for the arrival of beings who called themselves the galaxy's most peaceful species. Oswald was a tall man who carried his 70 years with dignity, his silver hair meticulously groomed despite the desert wind that whipped across the tarmac. His blue suit was specially designed for ancient contact scenarios, embedded with protective fibers and communication arrays that would seem like science fiction to most Earth citizens. Through his hidden earpiece, he could hear the chatter of military channels, contingency plans being reviewed for the dozenth time. The Tau Ceti convoy is entering the atmosphere, a voice reported. 50 ships confirmed. 50 ships, for what they claimed was a routine check on a pet. Oswald's jaw tightened imperceptibly. The ships descended in perfect formation, each no longer than a commercial bus, their hulls shimmering as they drew closer. They landed with a whisper, technology so advanced it made humanity's best efforts look like stone tools. The lead ship's ramp descended, and the Tau Ceti emerged. Oswald had studied every available image, but seeing them in person was different. They stood roughly human height, but moved with an unsettling fluidity, as if their bones were more suggestion than structure. Their skin was snow-white, almost translucent, revealing hints of blue circulatory systems beneath. Where humans had hair, masses of delicate tentacles swayed, each one capable of independent movement. But it was their faces that unnerved him most, features arranged in an expression of perpetual gentleness, eyes that seemed to radiate benevolence, too perfect to be true. Ambassador Wood, the lead Tau Ceti spoke, his voice impossibly calm. I am Ambassador Near. We are grateful for Earth's hospitality. Ambassador Near, Oswald replied with a practiced bow. Earth welcomes the Tau Ceti delegation. I trust your journey was comfortable. Most pleasant. Near's tentacles rippled in what Oswald had learned was their equivalent of a smile. We are eager to complete our ceremonial obligation. When may we meet the human family who received our gift? It is our custom to visit before the creature reaches the end of its natural life. Oswald's mind raced. End of its natural life? According to his briefings, Dree was barely 20 years old, still young enough by any measure. I believe there may be some confusion, he said carefully. The Driari that came to Earth is still quite young and in excellent health. The Tau Ceti delegation exchanged rapid glances, tentacles writhing in what might have been concern or calculation. Perhaps, Near said slowly, there has been an error in your examination methods. Driari given as gifts rarely live beyond 2 decades. We would very much like to verify the individual's condition ourselves. Every diplomatic instinct Oswald had developed screamed danger, but the plan was already in motion. Of course, he said smoothly. I've arranged for the family to meet us here. Here? Near's perfect features showed the first crack of genuine emotion. confusion. We had expected to be invited to a conference. The clouds above them parted. Even knowing what was coming, Oswald felt his breath catch. Drea descended from the sky like something out of myth, her scales colorful under the sun, wings that could have wrapped around a building spread wide. The ground shook as she landed, her mass greater than some of the Tau Ceti ships. The transformation in the Tau Ceti was instantaneous. The gentle, peaceful demeanor vanished like a discarded mask. In movements almost too fast for human eyes to properly track, every member of the delegation drew weapons, small, elegant pistols that had been completely hidden moments before. "What is the meaning of this?" Oswald demanded, though he kept his voice level. "You draw weapons on Earth's soil." "That human is in mortal danger," Nier said, his voice now sharp as broken glass. "Our defective pet could kill him at any moment. We cannot allow any accident to occur because of our gift." The certainty in his voice, the lack of any doubt or surprise at Drea's size and appearance, told Oswald everything he needed to know. They had always known what the Driari truly were. Seth stood beside Drea, feeling very small but utterly unafraid. So many years of growing alongside her had taught him to read every shift of her scales, every nuance of her emotional field. Right now, she was radiating fury. "You knew," Drea projected, her mental voice reaching every mind present. "You knew what would happen if we were raised on a world like Earth." Nier's tentacles stilled. "An unfortunate oversight of our scientific team. Driari were not meant for death worlds. This environment has awakened obsolete traits." "Obsolete?" Drea's head lowered until she was eye level with the ambassador. "Tell me the truth. Tell me the truth. All of it." For a moment, Nier was silent. Then, with what might have been a sigh, he spoke. "Before we achieved spaceflight, before we developed civilization, our ancestors suffered under the Driari. You were our predators hunting us across our homeworld for millions of years. When we finally developed technology, we could have destroyed you." "But you didn't," Seth said. "We were peaceful," Nier replied, and for the first time, the claim sounded like a mantra they told themselves, rather than the truth. "We chose mercy. We changed you instead, made you companions instead of killers. You should be grateful we spared your species from extinction." "Grateful?" Drea's projection was like thunder. "You stole our nature, our freedom, our very selves. We gave you purpose, safety, a place in civilized society. You made us slaves. We made you cute-looking and ready to be loved by every species in the galaxy." The argument might have continued, but Nier suddenly straightened, his communication implant clearly receiving new orders. "The gift was clearly a mistake," he announced. "We formally request the return of the Driari. It will be cared for properly on a suitable world." "She's not going anywhere," Seth said firmly. More Tau Ceti emerged from the ships, these ones carrying larger weapons, devices that vibrated in sync. Oswald stepped forward, trying to salvage a situation that was deteriorating faster than anyone had anticipated. "Surely we can discuss this." "There is nothing to discuss," Nier cut him off. "We do not wish to quarrel with humanity. But be warned, we have the technology to finish any conflict you might start." Through his earpiece, Oswald heard the military channels explode with conversations. The Tau Ceti, the peaceful Tau Ceti, had just threatened Earth. Seth, in a moment of beautiful, foolish bravery, stepped directly in front of Drea. "You'll have to go through me." "Stand aside, human," Nier said coldly, "or share the fate of a defective pet." "I am not," Drea said, each word accompanied by a building psionic pressure that made everyone's ears pop. "A pet." The Tauseti exchanged glances of genuine fear now, the kind of ancestral terror that millions of years of civilization couldn't quite erase. "I was raised on Earth," Drea continued, blood beginning to trickle from her nostrils, "by humans with freedom to become what I truly am." One of the Tauseti raised its weapon. Drea closed her eyes. The sonic wave that erupted from her was visible, a ripple in reality itself that passed through the humans like a gentle breeze but hit the Tauseti like a sledgehammer. In perfect synchronization, every member of the delegation crumpled to the ground, their perpetually gentle features finally terribly still. In the aftermath, it took Drea a full week to recover from the psionic expenditure. Seth never left her side, feeding her by hand, keeping her massive head in his lap as she slept off the exhaustion of defending her family. The political fallout was swift and severe. The Tauseti Confederation declared humanity responsible for the death of their diplomatic delegation, but the recordings, every second captured from multiple angles, told a different story. A peaceful species that carried hidden weapons. A gift that was actually an imprisoned predator. A threat of war before any human had fired a shot. "They'll come for us," Oswald told Seth during one of his visits to the farm. "Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but they'll come." Seth scratched behind Drea's ear. She was awake now, but still weak. "Then they'll find us ready." Many of Earth's governments had already dispatched discreet teams to acquire as many Driari eggs as possible from the black markets and gray zones of the galaxy. Each one would be brought to Earth, raised on a proper diet, bonded with a human companion who would see them as family rather than property. When the news finally broke to the public, carefully managed, with Drea presented as both victim and hero, the response was mixed. Fear, certainly, but also something else. A fierce pride that Earth, young Earth, had stood up to those who would deceive them. "Dragons," one commentator had said. "They tried to give us broken dragons, and Earth fixed them." It wasn't accurate, but the sentiment stuck. As Seth stood in the field behind their farm, watching Drea stretch her wings in the setting sun, he thought about the future. War was likely coming, Earth's first interstellar conflict, but they wouldn't face it alone. They would face it with dragons. "No," Drea corrected gently, reading his thoughts. "With family." Seth smiled, leaning against her warm scales. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Dragon and human, predator and partner. Two species that had found in each other something the galaxy had never expected. The galaxy would learn soon enough that Earth and its new companions would not be tamed. And to both of them, it was only the beginning.